The mysterious murders in Morocco. On October 9th, 2004, in the beautiful country of Morocco, specifically in its capital, Rabat, a family reported their son, Mourad, missing to the police. The police began searching for him immediately, but he was nowhere to be found. After days of searching, they discovered Mourad's body in an abandoned house. His hands were tied with a rope, and he had a wound caused by a sharp object that severed a vein, leading to his death. Additionally, they found something strange at the crime scene, a message written in the victim's blood on a mirror, saying 1 of 5. What could this mean? This story is like something out of a movie and was documented in police files by Chief Abdelatif Boumouch from the Moroccan police. To understand the story and the terrifying person behind it, stay with me until the end. The poison tea. 2 days after discovering Mourad's body, the police received another report about the death of a young man named Issam al-Suwaidi, found dead in a popular cafe. The cause of death was unusual. He had consumed a large amount of poison in a cup of tea. The most striking detail for the investigators was the writing on the bathroom mirror in the cafe, which read 2 of 5. This clearly indicated that the same person was behind both murders. The police brought in a large number of witnesses who were in the cafe at the time of the incident and began questioning them. Everyone's statements were similar, saying that everything seemed normal until Issam suddenly started screaming and died before anyone could help him. The forensic report confirmed that Issam died from a large dose of poison. The police questioned the cafe staff, suspecting someone might have poisoned him, but they found no evidence pointing to anyone. The burning car. The third report came from a group of residents who witnessed a car fire in the Al-Harhouri forest area. The police arrived at the scene and found the car burning with a person inside. They managed to rescue the young man at the last moment and took him to the nearest hospital. The investigators identified the young man as Samir from his ID and some documents he had with him. However, what shocked the police for the third time was the writing on the car's rear window, which read 3 of 5. The common factor in these crimes was the number sequence: 1 of 5, 2 of 5, 3 of 5. The police were dealing with a dangerous and professional individual, and they began planning how to catch him. Story 4. The final 2 victims. The message, 3 of 5, indicated that there were still 2 more victims to complete the series of crimes. The police were still in the dark about the identity of the perpetrator. Their only hope was for Samir to wake up from his coma and reveal the identity of the killer. Samir did wake up and confessed that he knew why the killer was targeting them. He struggled to speak and passed away in the hospital 2 days later. The information he provided was not enough, which complicated the police's investigation. The police quickly deployed their forces everywhere to find the remaining 2 individuals before they were killed. However, the killer was always 1 step ahead. While searching, they found the body of one of them, named Khaled Al-Matuk, dead in his car. For the 4th time, the police found the common element in all these crimes, the writing left by the killer. On the car window, it read 4 of 5. The killer had used pepper spray to immobilize his victim before killing him, the same method used with Mourad and Samir. The investigators intensified their efforts to catch this serial killer who had taken the lives of these individuals. Despite their efforts, they had no concrete evidence, especially considering it was 2004, and they lacked modern tools and widespread cameras like we have today, making their task even more challenging. Samir's shocking confession. Before his untimely death, Samir said a confession that seemed to bring a glimmer of hope to the investigators handling a long-standing mystery. He admitted that he and 4 others had abducted a young woman in Rabat and taken her to an abandoned house in the forest, the same location where a murder victim had been found. Samir's story, though incomplete, was chilling. The woman, who remained unidentified, was held against her will for 3 days in harsh conditions, deprived of food and water. Despite Samir's admission, he could not reveal the full details of the crime or the identities of all those involved. Just 2 days after his confession, he succumbed to his injuries in a hospital, leaving the police with more questions than answers. For weeks, the investigation seemed at a standstill until an anonymous letter arrived at the police station. a mysterious letter. The letter claimed to be written by the victim herself. It described the events in vivid detail, outlining the abduction, the confinement, and the aftermath. What shocked the investigators was the writer's confession. She had taken matters into her own hands after being failed by the very system meant to protect her. Initially dismissed as a hoax, the letter's specifics forced the authorities to reconsider. The information it contained was too accurate to be fabricated, describing the location of the house, the interactions with the abductors, and even the emotional toll of the ordeal. A harrowing ordeal. The writer revealed herself as Fatima Khaled, a young woman who had recently graduated from pharmacy school and moved to Rabat in search of work. Unfamiliar with the city, she inadvertently wandered into a dangerous neighborhood. While walking through the streets, she noticed a group of men watching her intently. Before she could escape, a black car pulled up beside her. The men forced her inside, blindfolded her, and drove her to an unknown location. Fatima described the journey in vivid detail. Though blindfolded, she focused on the sensations around her, the change from paved roads to dirt paths, the sound of rustling leaves, and the distant calls of animals. The aftermath of the abduction. For 3 days, Fatima was held captive in the abandoned house. She was given no food or water, left to endure the torment of isolation. When her captors finally released her, they abandoned her in the same neighborhood where she had been abducted. Devastated, Fatima went to the police, desperate for justice. However, her experience with law enforcement only deepened her despair. The officers dismissed her claims, questioning the validity of her story. Without concrete evidence, no names, no license plate numbers, they refused to investigate further. Taking justice into her own hands, determined not to let her captors go unpunished, Fatima decided to act on her own. She began retracing her steps, revisiting the streets where she had been abducted. Using her keen memory, she identified the route the car had taken and eventually located the abandoned house where she had been held. Fatima then shifted her focus to identifying the men responsible. Disguising herself, she spent weeks observing the area where she had first encountered them. Her persistence paid off when she recognized one of the men entering a nearby building. Over the following days, she meticulously tracked his movements, learning where he lived and who he associated with. Using this information, she crafted her plan. A chilling revelation. In her letter to the police, Fatima detailed how she confronted the men, one by one. She described the pain they had caused her and the justice she felt compelled to seek. Her words painted a picture of someone deeply wronged, yet remarkably resourceful. Though the police reopened the case, they faced criticism for their initial inaction. Fatima's story became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and a cautionary tale about the failures of the justice system. Fatima then devised a clever plan to monitor the street where she was abducted. She disguised herself in old clothes and pretended to be a beggar, sitting near a well-known cafe in the area. One day, she spotted one of the men who had kidnapped her. She followed him in a taxi to his house, discovering that he lived in a large villa nearby. The next day, Fatima went to the villa and knocked on the door. The man was shocked to see her and asked how she had found his house. She calmly told him that she wanted to talk and didn't want any trouble, but if he refused, she would expose him. Reluctantly, he agreed to go with her to the abandoned house. Once inside, Fatima pretended to be friendly until she was sure he wasn't suspicious. Then, she quickly pulled out a pepper spray from her pocket and sprayed it in his face, causing him to fall to the ground in pain. Without wasting any time, she took out a sedative and applied it to his face, rendering him unconscious. She then searched the place for a rope, tied his hands, and waited for him to wake up. When he regained consciousness, Fatima demanded information about the other men. He tried to plead with her, but she was determined. Eventually, he gave her the information she needed. Fatima then decided to end his life, leaving a message on the mirror with his blood, one of 5. The 5th victim's fear. As news spread about the girl who had taken justice into her own hands, the fifth man, overwhelmed with fear and anxiety, decided to turn himself into the police. He confessed everything, admitting that he was one of the 5 who had wronged her and begged for protection. Fatima, realizing that he had gone into hiding, managed to leave the country before the police could identify her. In May 2005, a letter arrived at the office of Police Chief Abdul Rahim Butter. The letter read, "Sir, I am the girl who was wronged by the 5 individuals. I have carried out my own form of justice after they destroyed my dreams and took away my chance to return to my city. Despite the pain I endured, I completed my studies. By the time you receive this letter, I will have left the country and will not return. I wrote this letter to ensure that no innocent person is wrongly accused." After seeking her own form of justice, Fatima disappeared completely. Do you think what Fatima did was justified or not? I'll leave that for you to decide in the comments. And with that, our story comes to an end. Take care and see you next time.